Okay, it says I'm live and check the pulse. Yes, I am. Welcome to the live stream. How many people we got? 7 people so far, which is not bad. By the way, the light's going to get better on my face as the sun rises. Hi, and welcome to the live stream. This one's a bit of a weird one because it's actually a public holiday here in Australia right now, and that in itself is a tale. The consensus of opinion of a lot of Australians is that it's Australia Day. It celebrates the 26th of January when the first fleet arrived at Farm Cove and colonisation really started in Australia. But for Indigenous people and supporters of Indigenous people, it's known as Invasion Day or Sorry Day because it's the day when the takeover and the genocide in Australia began. So it's very, very controversial today. And the consensus of opinion among people who care about these things is that we should change the date away from the date when colonization started and have Australia Day on a different day because historically Australia Day's been in a whole bunch of different days. But there are a lot of people who are whinging about Australia Day. It's a whole thing. Yep. Hi, Deb. Deb says, "Yep, it's called Australia. It's called Invasion Day in my world." And Dick said, "Good evening from Richard and Roxy. Carol's away, but says hi." Okay, well, hi, Carol. Hi, Patrick. How you doing? Yeah, so it's a whole thing. And the weird thing is, because it is Invasion Day, I know where I was exactly 38 years ago. I mean, how many people can say that they know exactly where they were 38 years ago to the day? In 1988, we had the bicentennial of colonization in Australia. There was a great big thing on the harbour with tall ships. There were fireworks, there were celebrations all along Sydney Harbour. But there was also a protest march of Indigenous people from all over Australia. Some people came in old rat trap cars. People travelled across the whole country by road to get to the protest marches about a whole bunch of things. Indigenous disenfranchisement was one of them. Deaths in custody was another. And I was going to the protest march, so I waited at Central Station when we were going to join the protest march. And the idea was for white supporters of First Nations people to walk behind respectfully, but walk behind the Aboriginal mobs and follow them to where the protests were going to be. Didn't happen that way. What happened was a whole bunch of aunties from the different mobs. One of them grabbed me by the arm and said, "You're walking with my mob. You're with me. You're one of my people today." And we walked up there and we saw the talks. Yossi Yindi played music. Really good day. So when this day comes around, I think back on how welcoming and inclusive First Nations people were to me during that protest. It was just one of the most magical moments in my life. Forsyth says, "It may be Australia Day there, but it's Snow Day here in Connecticut." Yeah, it's Invasion Day as well. Hi, Franny, how you doing? Yeah, Deb says, "Yeah, I was at the protest here in Hobart, though, at the time I was based in Melbourne." Yeah, it was a really good day. I got sunburnt because, yeah, I'm pale, but I really treasure that day. It was so important. And the vibe in Sydney at the time was fantastic. Radio Redfern, the Indigenous radio station here in Sydney, sorry, was playing the best music for a whole month, and it just felt like a movement, and felt like something was actually happening. And I was living in Sydney in Glebe, not far from the harbour. I got so bloody sick of fireworks displays during that time. It was just incredible. So I'm going to leave it there as far as Invasion Day is concerned. I truly believe in changing the date for Australia Day. I think it disrespects First Nations people, and we've disrespected them for a very long time. We've actually got a bit to talk about this time around too, which is kind of good. Okay, so weather report. Tell me what the weather's like where you are. If you're in North America, chances are you're tits deep in snow. But give me your weather report. What's it like in Nipaluna? What's it like up around where Phryne is and Forsale? Forsale's already told me that it's a snow day in Connecticut. So, what's the weather like? I might get more Australian people today, come to think of it, because we've all got a day off. Doo, doo, doo. Yeah, the other thing too is nephew Billy is in the house. He's been here for a week, and he's 15 years old. He's 16 in March. So we've been doing a lot of stuff with Billy, and you can tell that there's a teenager in the house for a couple of reasons. First one is we have a chalkboard painted onto one of the walls, and that chalkboard's now covered in Dick graffiti, which somebody has painted on there or drawn on there. The other thing is all the toilet seats are always left up, and the other thing is there's usually a bit of a mess. Dick, Friday says, having a good day. I found a Blu-ray of Michael Powell movie, not heard of, Honeymoon, and I got it for £5. Nice haul, nice haul. Dick says, being overcast in Dover today with a little rain in the late afternoon. Patrick says 37 degrees with a quarter inch of snow in Albuquerque. I flew over Albuquerque when I was flying from, where was it? I was flying from New York. I flew from Baltimore to Los Angeles with a stopover in Memphis. And I flew over Albuquerque, and it looks like a dartboard in the desert from above. Let's see. Friday says weather's wet and grey, but a bit warmer. Deb says it's lovely in Nipaluna. It's going to be 24 degrees today and 34 tomorrow. Yeah, it's going to be 30 degrees centigrade here today and 41 tomorrow here. Forsyth says, while they're at it, they should change Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. I agree with you. I think respecting First Nations is a healing thing. And it doesn't just heal First Nations people. I think it heals the spirit of a country. I think that that's incredibly important. Hi, Dog's Dad. How you doing? What's the weather like where you are? Patrick says, feels like we get stuck a lot here too. Yeah, I understand what you mean. It's really, I've been watching the Minneapolis stuff as well. I don't want to get too political, but it's the elephant in the room of the world at the moment. And it reminded me that in 1988, I actually did a protest in Minneapolis. I was staying with Denny Lean and Terry Gary, two science fiction fans, very lovely people who have now unfortunately died. And we were having coffee in the morning because I was staying there for 2 weeks. They were so generous. And Terry said, you want to go across the road to the protest? I went, well, yeah, what's the protest? And they went, there's a gay-friendly church on this corner, which Fred Phelps and his religious nuts have come up from Kansas City, and they're going to protest across the road from the church. You know, right-wing nut jobs, homophobes, AIDS haters, and all that kind of thing. And I went, sure. So we took our coffees and we took our little banners, which had been made up by Terry and Denny. And we walked diagonally across the street to this church and stood outside the church with about 100 people. And meanwhile, Fred Phelps's mob of about 10 people were standing on the opposite street corner. So we basically defended the church against haters and homophobes on this lovely summer's day in Minnesota. And the best thing was, these guys are standing right up to the curb diagonally across there and shouting a lot of hateful things about gay people and about all sorts of rainbow people. And then suddenly there's a rumble in the distance, and the rumble gets louder and louder and louder. And about 15 dykes on bikes on big fat boy Harleys come zooming around the corner. And where these people are standing right up to the curb, they just zoom around the curb and scare the shit out of Fred Phelps's haters. And they backed off. and everybody's cheering the dykes on bikes, and we did the protest and went back and had breakfast. I think we went out for breakfast that morning. It was amazing. It was a really good thing to do. I was already an ally at the time because I'd been at the protest. I've been a crowd marshal at Mardi Gras, and because I have been in a protest in Minneapolis, the things happening with ICE and with protesters in Minneapolis, I feel a connection to it more than I would otherwise. Um, Dog's dad says windy and cold in Northern California. DB Cooper, Portland, Oregon, chicken in with sunny skies at 3 degrees. Too cold, man, too cold. I like the warm weather. It was hot the other day, and I just loved it. It never, as long as I stay hydrated and as long as I put on sunblock and wear a hat, I'm kind of okay with hot weather. Oddly enough, on the very hot day, a couple of days ago, I had a YouTuber turn up at my house. Another YouTuber came over. Julian from Collector Creations channel came over to visit. And in order to get ready for his visit, I actually got the movie room organized. All the piles of videos were put on shelves in rough alpha order, vacuumed the floor, moved the couch around, cleaned up everything. So it was looking pristine. And Julian has a project where he's doing a documentary. He doesn't know quite yet whether it's going to get a release at some kind of film festival or whether he's just doing it for YouTube. That's still up in the air, depending on how it goes. And he's interviewing a whole bunch of people who collect physical media. And he's got a set of questions he asked them. And he asked me to do that. He's already interviewed a few other people, John Harrison, a few other people like that. So Julian came over with his 2 cameras and his tripods and his little microphone hooked up to his old Apple phone. And he interviewed me for about 15, 20 minutes about why I collect physical media. And I went historical about it. I talked about why it's important, all that kind of stuff. So we did that, and it was really good. And Julie and I can talk about movies forever. We're very chatty about that kind of thing. And then I flipped the narrative on him. I said, listen, we're going to do something else as well. And I will answer the chat in a moment, but I'll finish what I'm saying. I said, here's what we're going to do. My movie room looks a bit like the Criterion Closet. So I'm going to get you to go into my room while I film you, and you pick 10 movies that you recommend. We're going to do it like the Criterion Closet. And so I filmed a video for my channel of Julian going around my movie collection and pulling out 10 movies he likes and just talking about them. So I've already got that video scheduled for Wednesday. So you're going to get that in a couple of days. But it was fun to do. I might get other people in at some stage. But I got Julian to do that. I helped him out with his project. He helped me out with mine. Then we talked about movies for an hour. It was great. And we had a terrific time with it. So we did that on, I think, Saturday it was. And I got the video edited very quickly because he's very smooth with his talking. Forsyth says, great idea, can't wait to see it. And Dog's dad says, what's the Australian opinion on what's going on here in the US? For sale, it's a fascist takeover. There's no 2 ways about it. I really love Minneapolis because I did spend 2 weeks there. Fantastic people, lovely, intelligent people, all the people I met there, whether it was a shopkeeper or people I stayed with or other people I met, and I met a lot of people. I really love Minnesota, and what's happening in Minnesota does touch me. You guys have got a fight on your hands. You're going to have to do something about this. And Mad King Donald there's something has to be done. I'm not in favor of violence. I'm in favor of rule of law. And within the rule of law, there is a path to managing this and punishing who needs to be punished. But that's all I'm going to say about that. Patrick says, yeah, I lived through the end of the anti-Vietnam War protests. It's surreal going through this. You hope the world changes for the better over your lifetime. It does, but not evenly. I mean, I forget where I read it, but somebody said that there's a cloud of evil that circles the world, and every now and then it touches down somewhere and stays for a time, and then it is moved on. And that's how it feels. Deb says, dog stab, personal opinion. I think it's abhorrent. Yeah. We can't not talk about this because it is the biggest thing in the world. But I will support people of goodwill wherever they are. And I know so many good people in America who are suffering and who are feeling the pain and who are in shock about what's happening here. But if you look at any of the video, the bad people are an incredible minority. The power of people of goodwill is never to be underestimated. It is a fight, and it's a fight, sadly, that's going to have to be dealt with. But you've got to resist. Dog's dad says, "Sorry, don't know to be angry or just saddened." I think both are valid. I mean, you feel what you feel, and if you care, you're going to feel something. Uh, the insanity of one man can profoundly affect so many people, and I think that's a horrible thing. But you got the midterms coming up, which will change things somehow. Yeah, I'm like the rest of the world. I'm sitting there, I wake up in the morning, I open up a news website, and I see what new fuckwittery has happened over there. I did that on the last live stream when I talked about how you can make a remake of Casablanca, but make America the place people are escaping from. For Sale says, I have a bumper sticker on my car which reads resist with a clenched fist image next to it. Cool. Dog's dad says, let's chat about films. Yeah, okay, let's chat about films. We'll underline that, put a pin in it. So, yeah, so Julian and I did like YouTube work on Saturday, and it was really cool. Had a lovely time. And then I watched a movie, and I know we want to move on from politics, but I watched Nuremberg, the new movie with Rusty Crowe playing Hermann Goering, and it's got Rami Malek in it as well. Michael Shannon's in there, about the Nuremberg trials. And to be honest with you, it's timely for that movie to be made. And there are things said in the movie about Germany which are relevant to other parts of the world in 2026. You can't say enjoyed. I really like the movie. It's confronting because it does show footage of the camps, but I think it's a nice, solid, honest film, and it's got some really good acting in it. Crow is really good as Goering. The other thing is Richard E. Grant is really good as the English prosecutor, whose name I have just forgotten, but he was a real life person, and he cross-examined Goering and nailed him for the war crimes. The real life guy that Richard E. Grant's playing in Nuremberg was the brother-in-law of Rex Harrison, Henry Higgins. He was Rex Harrison's brother-in-law, which blew my mind when I found out because I went down a rabbit hole about it. But I recommend you see Nuremberg if you are in the right headspace to do so, because it is a confronting movie. It tells the story well, and it tells and it has an opinion on the narrative, which I really enjoyed. So I recommend that one. I'm not going to do a full review of that on this channel. I thought I'd do it for the live stream, but recommend Nuremberg. And I got a 4K. I only bought one 4K this month because I'm trying to be a good boy. Patrick says Shawcross. I'm not sure what that means. But I bought this 1980 horror film starring Dennis Christopher on 4K. It's a movie that was all over the VHS shelves in video stores back in the day. Fade to Black, which is kind of a cool movie to do because Dennis Christopher plays an insane movie fan in this. And he meets a woman who looks like Marilyn Monroe, played by Australian actress Linda Kerridge, who looked like Marilyn Monroe. And the character, Eric, played by Dennis Christopher, goes mad. It references a whole bunch of classic movies, Dracula, just a whole bunch of White Heat gets mentioned and name checked, and he dresses up like Cody Jarrett. Just a whole bunch of different movies. Kiss of Death with Richard Widmark gets mentioned and directly referenced in the film. Really interesting 1980 horror film about a mad movie buff. And Mickey Rourke's in there in an early role as well. Had a good time with that last night, so I recommend Fade to Black. DB Cooper says, every Friday a friend and I have been watching old films. Watch Once Upon a Time in the West. I've got it on 4K. I like it. I like Sergio Leone's westerns. I like the fact that they filmed it in Monument Valley. It's just got such a good panoramic look about it. I really should watch the 4K again. I've actually got two Once Upon a Time. I've got Once Upon a Time in Hollywood on 4K, and I've got Once Upon a Time in the West on 4K. So I upgraded mine and passed on my Blu-ray copy of Once Upon a Time in the West to a friend. For Sale says, I saw Fade in Black in the big screen back in 1980, a movie for movie lovers. Yeah, it's a cautionary tale for movie lovers. Don't get too obsessed. Don't chain smoke and watch old movies obsessively. And it's got this weird ending where Eric's like King Kong, and instead of being on the Empire State Building, he's on the top of Grauman's Chinese Theatre with Linda Kerridge's character, whose name is also Marilyn. And the cops are down below. Tim Thomerson turns up as a police psychologist. Fade to Black is just like all over interesting for movie buffs and for people who like those kind of 1980s horror films. I'm a bit amazed that it got a 4K release here in Australia because we don't get everything on 4K here. But when I saw that and there was 20% off at JB Hi-Fi, I got that one and I enjoyed it. I think it's the nicest part of the 4K collection I've got. Did I tell you last week? Have I told you which movie Billy and I watched? Because when my nephew Billy turns up here, we always go out and see a movie, which it's a tradition we do. It's something my uncles did for me when I was very, very young. And so I've passed on the tradition to Billy. He got to pick the movie for some reason because he picked the previous one. He picked the Minecraft movie, which we watched last time he was down. And this time, being a 15-year-old, he picked SpongeBob SquarePants movie, The Search for SquarePants. And we watched SpongeBob SquarePants movie in the cinema. And the villain, who is a cartoon at the start, but then flips into the real world and looks like a human being with a big nose and makeup, who is actually the Flying Dutchman. I go, I know that actor. Who's that actor? Mark Hamill is in the new SpongeBob SquarePants movie playing the main villain, which is hilarious. It is very much a kid's movie, but it's got a lot of those little Easter eggs for grown-ups. It's got a few fart jokes and things like that, but it's also got some adult Easter eggs, which are kind of fun, little bits of saucy dialogue. Kind of enjoyed that, but I get to pick the next two movies because that's the deal. And so next time Billy is down, I get to pick two movies. And hopefully he comes down or I go up to Sydney at a time when there's something really good on in cinema. So I'm going to do that and try to blow his mind with a film because I did get him to watch Late Night with the Devil a couple of years ago. So I'm looking forward to finding just the right movie to inflict upon the nephew. Have we got an ad? Because chat has frozen. So I've got a bit more movie stuff to talk about as well. But yeah, SpongeBob the search for SquarePants. And I've got an espresso here because I had a little trouble starting the engine today. Got up at 6, went, have breakfast like a good healthy boy. And this is my second coffee because I need to sparkle. So what have you guys been watching? Just waiting for that. DB Cooper says, I'm here. Yeah, well, I can see that there are 13 people at the moment. Dick says, just sit here listening while wrapping some eBay sales. Okay, cool. Yeah, you got to get the work done. Absolutely. But yeah, so I watched that, and then I watched this weird American television movie from 1973, starring Lloyd Bridges, Janet Leigh, who else is in there? Carl Betts, a few other people. Hi, D. Lee. And it's called The Deadly Dream, and it's shit. It's just such a shit movie. In it, Lloyd Bridges is playing a scientist who's just developed a way to increase human intelligence. When he falls asleep, he finds himself chased by a shady group of people who are trying to stop him from continuing his research. And he goes to sleep and something happens to him and it physically manifests on his body. And it keeps going on and he's pursued by these people. He starts losing the ability to tell the difference between dream and reality. And the movie ends with a damp squib of an ending. But it's kind of interesting. It's one of those concepts that has potential, but the screenwriters just didn't bother. So The Deadly Dream I watched, but I don't have to watch again. What's the weather like where you are, Dealey? Because we've been talking about the snowpocalypse in North America and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, so I watched that, and I watched Nuremberg, of course, and I watched Fade to Black. But for the most part, the weekend's been taken up with doing family stuff, which is not in itself a bad thing. What else have I been watching? I'll just get the letterboxed up. Yeah, okay, yeah, I haven't watched much else. I've watched 24 movies so far this year. And for me, it's the 26th. So I'm 2 days behind on my schedule to watch one movie a day. Friday says, rewatching Stargate Atlantis, really enjoying Starfleet Academy. Yeah, I'm enjoying Starfleet Academy as well. I think it's great. Holly Hunter is just fantastic. I want Giamatti to come back too. Paul Giamatti's in Starfleet Academy. A lot of people are giving it shit. Don't care. I'm enjoying it. We're 3 episodes in, and it's kind of comfort viewing. We want to see what Holly Hunter's going to do next, walking around barefoot and slouching into captain's chairs and all that kind of thing. It's just such fun. Dick says, what's following over my long weekend while Carol's away? The Strange Love of Martha Ivers, which is good. Kirk Douglas, one of his very early roles. 1984 with Richard Burton, who is my mother's second cousin. Richard Burton's my mum's second cousin. Bloodbath of the House of Death, Sid and Nancy, Near Dark, and The Gunfighter. That is a whole bunch of very varied movies there, Dick. And yeah, I actually got a pile of movies to watch now because when I fixed up the back room, the movie room, let me know too if you want me to do a tour of the movie room because I'll do it for a video on the channel. I'm not sure it'll be a particularly long video, but I will do a tour of the movie storage room and the other places where I've got movies stashed if people want it. But I'm kind of glad. I mean, I must have spent like 6 hours putting the videos on the shelves, cataloging them, getting them into rough, and I mean rough, alphabetical order so I can find anything there. And it was weird too because I had movies stashed in various places around the house, and I just pulled them out going, okay, that's where Age of Consent went to, and that's where Kiss Kiss Bang Bang went to. But they're now all on the shelves, and the shelves are Lovely. I just like going in there now and just sitting on the couch and chilling because I'm kind of proud that I got it done. Dick says, Wizard of Oz 1920s, the original, The Killers, and rewatched The Thing, the Carpenter one. Yeah, The Thing is great. I can only watch a certain number of times because I know all the plot beats. But the physical effects in The Thing are probably the peak of physical special effects. Deb says, Life's been pretty hectic here, so I haven't had time to watch a lot. I try and watch an old horror or science fiction movie in the morning and episodes of Monkey after dinner. Great Sage Equal of Heaven. D.B. Cooper says, have you ever seen a series single season Vinyl on HBO from years ago? The Jagger and Scorsese produced one. No, I haven't seen that. I hear it's good. The buzz I remember from it being good, but you can't see everything. That's the problem with the series. You've got to cherry pick because life only gives us 24 hours a day. Forso wants to get a tour, and Deb says she wants to see a tour of the movie room as well. Yeah, we'll do that. I'll definitely do that. It'll be just such an easy video to shoot because all I've got to do is talk and hold the Osmo Pocket 3 up as I scan the shelves and show you the other stuff in there, like the Vincent Price action figure and the Bobby Helpman action figure. So I'll do that. We've got some things stored like at the top shelf, like household stuff stored in there, but the rest of it from there down is movies and TV series. We're going to go and winnow the TV series as well. We've got to get Sal into the back room now that it's accessible, and anything that's hers from the TV series, we'll divide into keep it or donate it. So we're going to go through a little bit of that process, and I'll do it with mine as well. But and DB Cooper wants to see the room as well. Yeah, I think it's about 3,600 movies at the moment, which blows my mind. And I actually talk about how I was in my mid-20s before I could own a movie because VHS didn't come here until I was in my mid-20s. And so before that, you had to watch it on TV when it was on because you couldn't record before VHS, or travel to the cinema where the movie was showing. They were the two options I had for the first quarter of a century in my life. Hi, Sammy Adams. How you doing? Patrick says, contest idea. Viewers choose 4 or 5 titles and I try to find my copy of them. Yeah, but the thing is, you've got to know what I've got in the collection. And the database I can't really share. For Sale says, do I have any movies on DVD-R? I've got a few, but not many. I've got a couple of, video on demand things. But I don't have ones I've burnt myself because I got rid of those. Back maybe 15 years ago, there was a rental thing called Big Pond Movies where you have a subscription and they send you the movies by mail. It was run by Telstra, the biggest telecommunications company in the country. And so Sal and I used to rent the movies, burn them onto disc, and she would print covers out at work. And we'd get cases and we put them on the shelves. But I've got rid of all those as I've got genuine copies of things. But we actually did that little sly piracy for years. And Big Pond closed down because all of those mail movie rental things, which were a pain in the ass. I had to put things back in the envelope and send them back. And sometimes they send you discs that were scratched of buggery. We had a lot of those. I think I got rid of the last one on this cleanup. I found one that I had ripped 15 years ago and went, no, I don't need that. I can get a better copy of it. And I've chucked it and I've put it in the recycling bin. But it was really interesting going through the process of getting the collection in place and going, oh shit, I've got to rewatch that one, and I want to rewatch that one, and I want to talk about that one on the channel. It was there was a lot of bending and straightening up and rearranging shelves and all that kind of thing. I still got a little bit of room, but I think I'm going to have to filter the collection a little bit to make sure that anything really good that comes in I've got room for it to put it in a decent, accessible place. Struggle is real, and particularly with imprint and Umbrella being so generous with the review copies I get. It's becoming like, do I want to keep that one, or do I not want to keep that one? It's a happy problem to have, but I'm really kind of aware that this house does not have infinite space. Much as I'd love to have infinite space to put movies in, and I would. Uh, if I had like the warehouse from Raiders of the Lost Ark, I'd be probably happiest. But I'm happy with the back room and with the movies in place. And I've got some um, Christmas tree lights strung up around there as well. It's a very cozy place to just sit. And when I was making the notes for this video, I'd sat up the back there and just made the notes on the couch. Patrick says, I think I need a second house for my books and movies. It's always nice to have ambitions, Patrick. Yeah, shoot for it. If you can, you can. I mean, American houses are easier because they've got basements. But yeah, I know basements flood. But I see people who've got really, really groovy setups in their basements. And it's a kind of liminal space within a house. You can have all the domestic stuff above ground level, and then you've got this magical world beneath it. D. says the TARDIS would work, yeah, but too much of the real world. Like, if you had a TARDIS, yeah, okay, I'm going to 1920s Paris, and you'd spend all your time there, and then you wouldn't get time to watch movies. TARDISes are a distraction. Patrick says, I need a house. I can't afford a house. I understand that, Patrick. I was actually talking with Julian when he came over about particularly how younger people are having real problems getting on the property market and getting a home. I mean, we didn't get this house, even with a mortgage, until I was well into my 40s. So for a very long time, I was renting, and I had all of the friggin' hassles of renting, you know, house inspections, and suddenly they go, nope, nope, you've got to move out. We're going to sell the house or sell the flat or renovate the flat. That, I mean, I've lived here more than I've lived anywhere else in my life. We've been here nearly 25 years. And I still remember the uncertainty and how disruptive it was to rent. So I'm really aware of that pain and that hassle and that uncertainty. And to be honest, with fear as well that people have when they don't have a place of their own on a permanent basis. David says, I want an upgrade on the D&D bag of holding to a house of holding. Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. You kind of go, yeah, if I won the lottery, which I don't buy lottery tickets, but if I won the lottery, I'd design a house with a home theater, and the walls of the home theater would be shelves of movies. And I'd have a system where I could just slot the disc in and watch what I like. That'd be the ultimate. And the other thing I'd need is a dedicated YouTube studio. The plan is, and whether, by the way, give this live stream a thumbs up if you haven't, because it helps with the algorithm. It shows it to more people. But yeah, dedicated studio with like a neon light in the background that says Terry Talks Movies. All that kind of shit would be lovely to have. But I'm aware of the fact that I probably won't get it. But I'm kind of planning getting rid of a lot of this stuff in the man cave. And I know which wall I want to be the background for the live streams. If I'm doing a normal video, I think I'll do it up in the back room because it's more portable. Before the live streams, I've got to have access to the big computer here so that the camera will hook up and it'll stream. But for any non-live stream stuff, I think I'm going to go up in the back room and do it with the wall of movies behind me. And I've got 3 choices of walls I can use by moving the couch around. So that'd be nice. And also, the other thing that would be nice if I was staying here. I've got a wall in the backyard, which is like a blank wall facing west. Sorry, I'm just putting my feet up under the desk. And the cool thing to do would be to get a projector and put a screen on that wall because it's big enough for a screen, and just watch movies out there. You can only do it certain times of year practically, but it'd be nice. And I'd probably have to put out a lot of um, mosquito repellent on to watch movies out there, because in the summertime we do get mozzies at night, and the mozzies are starting to deliver the gift of Ross River fever to people where I live, and so that will be a problem. So, what's your ideal movie-based house? What would you like in your place? What kind of stuff would you like? A popcorn machine, a Slurpee machine? What kind of gear would you like to have in a movie-related house that you've got? Just let me know. Got to work out what I want to watch next as well. That's the other thing. Is do I go to the cinema today, or even tomorrow would be better, because it's going to be 41 degrees here tomorrow. And I can just pop down to the cinema and see something. I might see. I'm thinking either Anaconda or the new 28 Days Later. You know, get we've got air conditioning here, so the high temperatures are manageable. But it might be nice to kind of head out to the movies. Did we get ourselves another ad? I don't mind an ad because it helps with the revenue. But did we get ourselves another ad? Forstar says, before the VCR era, I owned a Super 8 sound projector and collected and screened movies that way. Yeah, I remember those. They were a little out of my budget at the time, but I did lust after them. There was a little camera store in one of the arcades in Sydney where they had those little castle films where they had Frankenstein and the Wolfman and things like that on those little Super 8 reels. And I was thinking of getting like a Victrola movie editor so I could watch them, because there was no other way to own a copy of a movie back when I was a teenager. And I lusted after those little castle films, short reels of movies, and they had a bunch of them there. Deb says, definitely the home theatre. Love the walls lined with shelves of movies. Yeah, that'd be fun. Friday says to Deb, I'm running out of shelves of books and discs, contemplating building floor to ceiling shelving with a rolling ladder. Kind of like the Candyman in Willy Wonka. Deb says, my movie buddy went to see the new 28 Days movie yesterday. She really enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm hearing really good things, and I'm really leaning into liking Ralph Fiennes as an actor, because he was really good in The Return, where he plays Odysseus returning to Ithaca and fending off all the guys who want to get with Penelope. That movie was fun. And he seems to be having a really interesting career resurgence, where he's playing really interesting roles and very varied roles. And I think he's very underestimated as an actor. Yeah. The other thing I was going to talk about, let me just see if I've got, there it is. There it is. The Oscar noms came out, and I'm not particularly a fan of the Oscars, because they gave one to Lionel Richie for Say You, Say Me, and I kind of went off them then. But this year's sort of interesting. And it's sort of interesting, and this is my theory, and yes, it's a theory, and it may be inaccurate, but it feels right. Everybody had such a long time during lockdowns a few years ago to polish their scripts and to smooth them out, because everybody couldn't go out and be distracted by the world. And so we're getting really good movies with really good scripts, because there was a time and the inclination. to really give us movies that are polished beyond what we normally have. That's my theory. If I'm wrong, I don't care. But I think the Oscars are demonstrating that there are a lot of those movies that had time to properly marinate, if you know what I mean. I'm not going to go through the whole lot, but I just thought I'd touch the high points of what I liked. Best Picture, Begonia, which I still haven't watched, but I've got a copy of. Frankenstein, which I've watched and I enjoyed. Best Australian Frankenstein's monster ever. F1, no interest in that. Hamnet, I want to see because I like Chloe Zhao. Mighty Supreme with Chalamet, haven't seen that. One Battle After Another, like that, going to get a copy of it. The Secret Agent, I've seen. And Wagner Moura is fantastic in that film. Sentimental Value, I haven't seen. Sinners, I like. I've got a 4K of. Really a big fan of Sinners. And Train Dreams. If I wanted a movie to win, if I was going to put money on what I want to win rather than what I think will win, it'd have to be The Secret Agent. I think it's, of the movies I've seen, it's the best one. It's just so powerful. Best Actor, we got Chalamet for Marty Supreme, Leo for One Battle After Another, Ethan Hawke for Blue Moon, Michael B. Jordan for Sinners. Why didn't they put him in there twice? And Wagner Moura for The Secret Agent. I really like Ethan Hawke in Blue Moon playing Larry Hart. I think that's a fantastic bit of a role. Best Actress, Jessie Buckley for Hamnet, Rose Byrne for If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, Kate Hudson for Song Sung Blue, Renee Ryan-Sieve for Sentimental Value, and Emma Stone for Begonia. I'm going with a local favourite. Rose Byrne has been doing really good work for years, and she's Australian, so that's my one on that. I'll just do the supporting actor and actress, and then I'll get off the Oscars. Elle Fanning, Best Supporting Actress, Elle Fanning for Sentimental Value. Didn't see her in that, but I did see her in the Predator movie. Inga Ibsdotter Lilias for Sentimental Value. Amy Madigan for Weapons. I hear she's really good in that. Wunmi Masaku for Sinners. She's really good in that. And Tiana Taylor for One Battle After Another. I'm going with Wunmi Masaku. I think she was really one of the grounding characters in that movie. And just such a complex female character, written and acted really well. Best Supporting Actor, Benicio del Toro, One Battle After Another. Jacob Elordi, Frankenstein. Delroy Lindo for Sinners. Sean Penn, One Battle After Another. And Stellan Skarsgård for Sentimental Value. There's about 4 of them that I really want to win. I want Benicio del Toro for One Battle After Another to win. I want Jacob Elordi for Frankenstein to win. I want Delroy Lindo for Sinners to win. I want Sean Penn for One Battle After Another to win. I can't split that one. I just think all of them deserve it. All of them did fantastic work. And I've been an enormous fan of Delroy Lindo for a very long time now. And to see him get a nomination for Sinners, chef's kiss on that one. But Sean Penn in One Battle After Another is just such a slimy piece of shit. You got to love that. Let's see what chat's saying. Deb says, no, I've seen that. I've said that one. Delia says, I wouldn't mind having my own film bunker with all my media on shelves and a big screen to watch them on in comfy recliner. That's the dream. I'd add a bar fridge to that because that way you've got a bevy at hand. And a snack shelf as well. I keep kind of working out what snacks I want to eat while I'm watching a movie. I can't eat potato crisps because I'm cutting down on salt. And also, when you're chomping on potato crisps, you miss bits of dialogue if you're not careful. But I think a snack shelf of some kind. Something non-noisy in the snacks. Deb says to Friday, all my hallways, office and lounge are jam-packed with overflowing bookshelves and movies are stacked on chairs as well as shelves. Wouldn't mind so much except I'm renting. Yeah, that's the problem, Deb, those stacks of things. And one of the great reliefs I have now is that I've got fewer stacks of things. I've still got some in the man cave, but they're not movies. The movies are all in the back room now. D. Lee says, Sinners got a record 16 nominations. Yeah, it did. And Ryan Coogler, I think it's in 25 years' time, is going to own all the rights to Sinners. He cut a deal with the studio, which is the best deal since Orson Welles got final cut on Citizen Kane, where he owns the movie in its entirety in 25 years. And he's going to make beaucoup money on that, I think. I think that's a really good deal, where the person who created the movie ultimately gets ownership of it rather than some corporate wanker 25 years in the future who's now in nappies having control over that film. I think that's a really great thing. I think that's good planning and good strategy and good deal making. And I want Ryan Coogler to have that deal for every movie. Franny says, Sinner's nomination was the topic of conversation on the train home from the Sue Perkins gig. Sarah's comment was, it's not like a genre movie is going to win Best Picture. It's happened before, but there is still a streak of racism in the people who vote for the Oscars. And because it's just such a positive black movie, a certain percentage of people won't vote for it, even though I think it's fantastic and it's got has a historical truth about it, even though there is that time tunnel at the dance. I think I love the fact that it is about something, and it is about the history of black people in the 20th century in America. I think that's great. And wrapping that in the wrapper of a genre film is just so good. I'm really glad that Ryan Coogler is not just making movies about men punching each other. I think I want to see what he does next. I want to see where his career goes, because I think he's a very interesting filmmaker. Same with Chloe Zhao, who made Eternals for Marvel, and that then let her make Hamnet. And I want to see Hamnet because I'm a little bit of a Shakespeare buff at times. One of the movie sets I got and I paid full whack for is here on the desk, and I want to watch them. The Shakespeare trilogy of Larry Olivier, Henry V, Hamlet, and Richard III. I'm going to be watching those very soon, and I'll probably review them. They're very dated and of their time, but they're like classic versions of these Shakespearean stories. So I want to watch Hamlet for that reason. I am a Shakespeare buff in a kind of stealth way. But yeah, Sinners are. We are just so lucky to have so many good films at the moment. The last couple of years have been hitting hard, and I do think it's down to lockdowns, and also down to the fact that big franchise films. I mean, Avatar's probably making a lot of money. Fire and Ash is probably making a lot of money, but it's going to have zero cultural impact because it's just going to be blue Smurfs in a different environment. But there are so many good films coming from the edges of things. I mean, I really love Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. I think that's just such a grand and gothic version of the story. And Oscar Isaac and Mia Goth and Jacob Elordi playing the monster. He gives us a very different monster. And Jacob Elordi does fantastically well for a Queenslander. I just love the wealth of film we have now, says the guy who went and saw a SpongeBob SquarePants movie this month. Friday says, Henry V is some Christmas Day speech. Yes, I prefer the Branagh version, but what a propaganda piece. Absolutely. Wartime propaganda. And I prefer the Branagh version as well. I love the Branagh version. And I actually like Much Ado About Nothing as well. Branagh's version of that's shot in Tuscany in the summertime is just so beautiful and saturated with joie de vivre. I've got a copy of that on DVD, and Saw it on the shelves and thought, "I've got to rewatch that." I love Much Ado About Nothing as well. But yeah, Shakespearean movies. I actually got a bunch. I got Coriolanus with, I think Ray Fiennes is in it, and I've got a whole bunch of them that I saw when I was reshelving, and that's the joy of reshelving things. Finding what you've got. Yes, you can look at a database, and when you got a database of several thousand films the way I have, it just becomes a row of words. But when you actually go and look on the shelves at the physical media you've got, and again, I'm incredibly fortunate to have that. You kind of go, "Oh, yes, I've got a copy of that, and yes, I want to watch that." And you feel like you want to be able to split yourself into 12 people and watch all of them at once. Um, I never underestimate how wonderful it is to own a movie because of that early thing where I couldn't own a movie for much of my early life. The magic of owning a movie, I keep appreciating over and over and over again at various moments. And it's one of the continuing delights of my life. Hi, Doug. How you doing? It's public holiday. These Australians are going to turn up. And so if you want to do me a favor, support Australian YouTubers. Boomer Doug. Also, Dick Powers. Dick's got a YouTube channel as well where he does hauls. Collector Creations, Julian's channel, which has been going for 10 years, is worth checking out. There are a whole bunch of Australian people who are great. Disconnected in America as well. Ryan is really great. There are just so many fantastic movie-related YouTubers out there. Go watch them now because you're on my live stream. Screw that. But there are just so many nice people and kind people and passionate people talking about movies on YouTube. It's such a lovely community to be a part of. And to a person, they all help and respect and lift each other. I totally love that. I go onto live streams for various people, like Crazy Joe's Concession Stand, and also Disconnection, Ryan's channel. And I talk about movies on those as well. To really, and that's okay, Dick. I will shout out my friends. And I just think it's such a great community to be a part of. And the Cinemaniacs movie collective, where we all go to see movies at the Astor that are curated by members of the collective. It's a good community to be a part of. And it's just so inclusive and passionate that, with the world in such a kerfuffle at the moment, it's good to see communities where people are helping one another and people are lifting up one another and people are recommending things to one another and people are encouraging one another. That's the kind of society I want to live in. And I love the fact that YouTube can mediate that for us. That's okay, though. DB Cooper says, funny thing is, I was thinking that same thing about your audience here on the live stream. Absolutely. This is part of it. But it's just one of those things where how we fight dark forces is an individual thing. And sometimes it's just about gathering your people around a campfire and offering comfort and sharing and passion and love about the things you want to talk about. That in itself is a really useful thing. It helps people through hard times. And yes, hard times aren't necessarily political. We have, we become unwell. We have family members become unwell. We have pets become unwell. Life throws shit at us. And having a safe space and a friendly space, whether it's physical, as in the Cinemaniacs when we all go to the cinema, or whether it's virtual, like a live stream or a channel or a chat and things like that, is just so important. It's just, the greatest thing that human beings do is build communities, and whether they're communities for good or ill depends on the individuals. But we're genetically geared to create communities, and we can do. And people bitch about social media a lot. There's a lot of negative stuff about social media that hits old media, and I wonder why. But I think social media is a tool, and building something with that tool is always much better than tearing something down with it. Family's still asleep. Billy was going to be on the live stream, but he stayed up late last night making virtual buses on on the internet because he's a bus nut, and he was up till 3 or 4 in the morning and eating pot noodles, making virtual buses on the internet, which is his thing, and I'm cool with that. Doug says, "You're so right. My little YouTube hobby has enhanced my life enormously." Absolutely, and what you're doing too, Doug, is sharing. It's a giving economy. It's yes, it's a meritocracy in some ways, but it's like I made something, I'm giving it to you, and you might like it. It's just an amazing world. Forsyth says it's a tribal thing, been that way forever. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the best tribes, and yes, we are tribal animals. It's why sport exists. But the best kinds of tribes are the ones where anybody is sitting at the edge of the light are welcomed in. Tribalism works two ways. One is a community being built, and the other one, which is something I've never ever liked, is my community is better than your community, and my mob are better than your mob. I think that never leads to good result. That insecurity and that pissing competition attitude to community building never works for me. I think, and maybe it's something that some Australians have taken on from Indigenous cultures, which for the most part traded with each other. But it was very rare that anything like warfare came out. There were means to deal with legal problems, which didn't involve everybody trying to kill everybody else. And I like the idea of inclusive communities, but I don't like competitive communities. That's just me because it sucks. I don't think it's us at our best. We are not the paragon of animals when we do that. That's another Shakespearean quote. So I'll throw out a question. What's your favorite Shakespearean movie? Because there are a lot of them. I mean, you could say West Side Story. I keep doing that when people talk about West Side Story on social media. I get a little puckish. I go, how about somebody do that set in Renaissance Italy, but get rid of the music? And people suddenly start thinking about it, and some people get angry with the idea, and some people go, "Yeah, that's the original version." But I do that. Forsyth says Forbidden Planet, good honest choice. Forbidden Planet is a Shakespeare adaptation, and a good one, reinterpreting it in a different way. In the same way, in a sense, that Seven Samurai was reinterpreted as Battle Beyond the Stars and the Magnificent Seven. A good, solid story structure is adaptable to different milieus, and telling the story in a different context often gives it to a new audience. Time for another sip. But yeah, I haven't watched Forbidden Planet in a few years. Maybe I should again. I've got this nice Blu-ray of Forbidden Planet, which also has the Invisible Boy on the disc. But yeah, I really love Forbidden Planet. One of my, I'd say, top 5 science fiction movies. But yeah, Which one will I think I'm going to watch Henry V first out of this lot because I like Hank 5, France 0. And the interesting thing about this imprint set is each of the discs has the original artwork on it, which is kind of retro but kind of cool as well. The other thing I should really rewatch is Chimes at Midnight, Orson Welles movie, because I really enjoy Chimes at Midnight. I haven't seen it for a long time. I do have a copy of it. Doug says, right again, Terry, I know you're generally a friend of mine. I know you're generalizing. A friend of mine has a YouTube channel, and the venom he gets from the so-called competitors is awful. Yours and my attitude is much healthier. Yeah, I mean, I don't need to tear other people down for me to feel good about what I do. Other people aren't the same. D. Lee says, Kurosawa's two Shakespeare's Ran and Throne of Blood. Yep. Again, that's the interesting thing is Kurosawa did Shakespearean adaptations. And then America did adaptations of Kurosawa. It's a circle jerk. But yeah, a good story is a good story. And finding a new way to tell it, I kind of like. I think that's honest work. And Shakespeare has been in the public domain since forever. And it is useful to contextualize that differently. Yeah. Doug says, Forbidden Planet, great choice, The Tempest. Deb says, Ryan, for me, Forbidden Planet, close second. Yeah. There's just so many good ones. I kind of like Kiss Me Kate because I'm a musical buff. I really like that. Love to be able to see it in 3D, but I haven't had access to the technology to do that. I think I'll watch more musicals this year because I went through the shelves. I've got a lot of musicals. Friday says, Kiss Me Kate is fun. Yeah, it is. If you're into spanking, it's even more fun. But I kind of like Howard Keel musicals. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, even though it is problematic from a sexual politics standpoint, I kind of like because the grace of particularly the male dancers, things like the Lonesome Polecat dance in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers is beautiful. It's graceful masculinity in a really interesting way. Friday says, Kiss Me Kate Kiss Me Kate is fun. And yeah, Cole Porter musicals. You gotta love that. That's one of the reasons why I love Blue Moon with Rodgers and Hart's music all the way through it. And if you haven't seen Blue Moon, you should see Blue Moon. Ethan Hawke is fantastic, and I'm not sure why he didn't get a gong this year. Maybe it missed the mark and didn't get a release until later, and it may turn up next year. But Richard Linklater's two movies in 2025, Nouvelle Vague and Blue Moon, are just so in my movie sweet spot. I watched them back to back one day after another. Blew me away. Forsyth says, I saw Kiss Me Kate in 3D in an art cinema house in Manhattan. You lucky duck. Friday says, Howard Keel even did science fiction Day of the Triffids. He did. And he was good in that role. I mean, he wasn't the most complex actor as far as drama is concerned. But, it's a good, honest piece of work. And Day of the Triffids did a lot with a little. I mean, the budget wasn't enormous on the movie version of Day of the Triffids. But they made it work. It landed because the Triffids, for a start, were creepy. And the actors just nailed the roles. And the special effects were done cleverly, but not necessarily with enormous budgets. And I do like that kind of science fiction movie where bucks are limited, but the people doing the creative stuff are thinking their way around the problem and finding innovative ways to overcome those limitations. Deb says, I really love the camaraderie here. One of the better live streams I'm engaged with. Oh, shucks. Well, it's good that you're watching live streams, Deb. You can't can things and make delicious food and put it up on the internet all the time. which is what you do. But yeah, the live streams are fun. I enjoy them. It means that I don't have to edit another video that week when I do a live stream. So there's a little bit of a hidden agenda there where I can just waffle, and it doesn't require all the editing my other videos require, because I go and ah too much in those other videos. Even though I've done hundreds and hundreds of them, I still, while I'm thinking while I'm talking a lot when I do those videos. And so there are moments where the little round thing on the screen whirs in my brain and I've got to work things out. But I love the process. There are times when I love the recording of the videos more than I like the editing. And there are times when I like the editing more than I like the recording of the videos. There's a duality there that really messes me around. I spend a lot of time in this chair editing out dumb shit I say. Doug says, years ago when I was an art student, I saw a great version of Twelfth Night by Setting Queensland Holiday Resort with Geoffrey Rush, pre-Shine. Yeah, that was the thing too. I saw back when I was unemployed in Sydney in my youth, a friend of mine who was kind of a semi-girlfriend told me that if you had an unemployment like a dole form that you needed to hand in to get your unemployment benefits, you could go to the Nimrod Theatre once during the run of every play they did. And they did a matinee session for unemployed people back in the 70s, actually early 80s. And so we went a few times and saw really good plays. And they had the most appreciative audience because, there wasn't a lot of entertainment for unemployed people. And I saw a thing called Il Magnifico, which was a version of the story of Lorenzo de Medici. And it's set, excuse me, and it's adapted to modern times. So the Pope is a Queensland property developer in white shoes. And it had Colin Friel, who was also in Darkmare. It had a whole bunch of different, really good Australian actors who later turned up in movies, doing this outrageous story written by Robin Archer about Lorenzo de Medici and making parallels between 1980s Australian politics and the Renaissance. Fantastic play. I had a great time with it. One of my best theatrical things. And that just reminded me of going and seeing these plays that were put on especially for people who were out of work. And the Nimrod Theatre did that for years and brought art to people who were doing it tough like I was. Deb says, thanks, mate. I've been keeping super busy because I've been so worried about Kitsum the cat. She's going back to the vet tomorrow for exploratory surgery. Hope Kitsum's okay. Dick says, yeah, I can understand all that you said about making videos. Yeah, making videos, there's a lot of work to it, but it's honest work. It's not sweaty work, but it's honest work. And to be honest, I'm a last minute kind of guy when it comes to my videos. So you guys see the videos 6 or 7 a.m. my time. That's when I'll launch them, which ends up being a suitable hour for most of my audience. At times, I'm up till 2 or 3 in the morning getting them ready because I do them all at the last minute. The exception, of course, being I did the video with Julian in the back room where I was doing the Criterion Closet thing. That one I got ready 5 days before, and I don't know what to do with myself between now and Thursday when I've got to start getting Science Fiction Saturday ready. I'm used to the grind. I'm used to doing a Wednesday video, which is already in the can now. I'm used to doing the Thursday video, the Friday. Sorry. What I do is Thursday I watch the movies for Science Fiction Saturday. Friday I record and edit and upload. Deb says, yep, I generally watch your videos while having breakfast. Yeah, well, I'll see if I can keep them breakfast length for you, Deb. So, yeah, last minute kind of thing. I kind of like the idea of having a few videos in the can ready to launch and scheduled, but realistically, it very rarely happens on this channel. Friday says, have I watched The Gentleman yet? No, and I haven't watched Curse of the Queer Wolf yet, but I do have Curse of the Queer Wolf queued up. I'm probably going to wait till after the nephew goes. He's leaving on Wednesday, and Wednesday's a very busy day for us this week. But I'll get more time to kick back when I don't have somebody shooting me with Nerf guns and other things like that. Love Billy a lot, but he's an extra person in the house that kind of changes the dynamic a little bit for us. Yeah, Friday says, woo, Curse of the Queer Wolf. I will watch Curse of the Queer Wolf. Will I do it this month? It's the 26th now. Probably either this month or February, Friday, just depending on how life throws itself at me. It's currently 17 degrees here. It's going to get up to 30. I'm waiting for that. Oh, yeah, the other thing too. Haven't talked about that. There are bushfires about 150 kilometers away from us. And we got covered in bushfire smoke yesterday morning. And you could only see for a kilometer because the smoke was coming over. It was crazy. And that's part of living in Australia in the summertime. Fortunately, the wind has changed. And hopefully they're getting the bushfires under control. But we got very smoky yesterday. Yeah, Franny says, Curse of the Queer Wolf is probably not for young eyes. I'll keep that in mind. The other thing too is, I mentioned watching Nuremberg, and my sister, Billy's mum, Linda, said, did you watch Nuremberg with Billy? And I said, no, because they do have footage of the death camps that's shown during the movie, because it was shown during the Nuremberg trials. And I said to her, he's 15. I would not show him that kind of stuff in a movie without your permission, because it is a fucking hard watch. And she said, you're a good uncle. Because, yeah, I don't try to control what he watches, but there's stuff where I go, okay, I'm going to have to get parental permission before I show him something like that. And I don't think, even at 15, he's very mature for 15. He's old enough to have that inflicted on him in a movie. Hey, Graham, how you doing? Dick says, you're our evening time watching here in the UK, usually after we had dinner and sitting there to relax with a bit of Terry Talks movies. Cool. Dilly says, jamming your work in the last minute is something I know all too well. Yeah, it's my process. I probably should get more organised, and I will attempt to. Now I've got the back room cleaned up, I can cut a little more time. But sometimes I don't even know which movies I'm going to cover until early afternoon on the day before they come out. Doug says, it was pretty much your videos that inspired me to do my YouTube channel, combined with a mate's encouragement to go on camera. I'm actually painfully shy and quite antisocial. Overcoming that in a safe environment is not a bad thing, Doug. Deb says, I just looked up Curse of the Queer Wolf. I'm in. And Friday says to Deb, it's absolutely hilarious. Everyone should watch it who likes so bad it's good movies. And Friday's been encouraging me for like 6 or 8 months to watch Curse of the Queer Wolf. It's on Tubi here at the moment. I'll definitely get it. Dog's dad says, where is Luna? I've actually left the back door ajar so Luna can wander in and out when she likes while I'm doing a live stream. She often, particularly summertime, she's not particularly cuddly because it's warm. I had a cuddle yesterday. But for the most part in the summertime, she doesn't cuddle much. Friday says, I'm nothing if not persistent. Yes, you are. But, yeah, I'm going to watch Curse of the Queer Wolf. I'm going to watch a bit of Shakespeare. I'm going to watch some new stuff. Really want to go and see the 28 Years Later, the Bone Temple. Because I really want to see what Nita Costa does with the movie. And I'm hearing nothing but good things from people I trust. The movie that a lot of people are giving a lot of shit to is Primate, the one about the rabbit monkey, the rabbit chimpanzee. The movie reviewers I know are just giving that such shit in the little chat between movie reviewers that I kind of sort of want to watch that as well. Dog's dad says, "How's my health and mag these days?" My health's fine. I've got medication to deal with atrial fibrillation and other issues, but it's going okay. I'm eating a little more healthy than I did. I should get more exercise than I do, and I will, because for the Travel Channel, I'm planning some walks so I can get a bit of steps in. Middle-aged geek girl's doing fine. She does have mental health challenges, but she's getting better at recognizing them and dealing with them quite quickly. So yeah, things are going okay. Graham said, "Went to see Mulholland Drive on the big screen the other day. Has anyone else seen it?" Yeah, I've seen Mulholland Drive. I do believe I've got a copy of it, but I haven't watched it in a while. Frony says, "Is the Amazon Melania movie going to be released in Australia?" Probably. I didn't even like the original version, Evita, but I might watch it and see if I can do like a diss track video on it. Do people want me to review the Melania movie? I think it'd be a good double feature with Nuremberg, but we'll see. My thoughts on Heated Rivalry. I think I know what it is, but I'm going to check. Um, I haven't seen it, and I don't know whether it's on a streaming service I can access, but I don't mind it. I don't mind the idea of it. I think it's honest to have all sorts of relationships reflected in movies and series, and I'm for that. I'm really, even though I'm not necessarily the demographic for it, I'm passionately in favor of it. Captain Lazy says, "Drinking a coffee. Cheers. Cheers." Um, let's see. Dog's dad said, "Just watch the new Star Trek Academy program. What a disappointment." I kind of liked it. I like the fact it's doing something different. And yes, it's going to have a lot of that kind of college stuff in it. But I really like Holly Hunter playing the captain. I really like Paul Giamatti in that. I also like Tig Notaro. It's got a good solid ensemble there. Doug says, "Just watched an interesting Welsh thriller series, The Guest, on BritBox. Very unpredictable, had us on the edge of our seats." Okay, cool. D. Lee says, "Let Ryan, George, and Brandon Tenold loose on the Melania film." Well, we'll see. Yep, Friday wants me to review Melania. Dick says, "Me and Carol discovered your channel during the first UK lockdowns and stuck with you since. After years of watching your good self, took the plunge to do my own, and love all the support you give. We're a community." That's Jill, by the way, if you just heard a little cat noise. What's up, Jill? She just comes in and talks at me. She's like 14 years old, and she'll come in and talk to me and want me to follow her around the house, but I'm not going to because I'm live streaming. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Supporting other people is, shut up, Jill. Supporting other people is me at my best. And yes, there are times when I get grumpy and shitty and cranky and all of that kind of stuff. But I'm kind of leaning into the New Year's resolution is to be kinder this year. And I'm leaning into being positive and kind and supporting people. I mean, we all know the problems the world has. And we've talked about that earlier in the live stream. So I'm not going to do it again. But what I can do is be supportive and be encouraging and being a distraction at a time when people need a break and need a distraction. I mean, that's what I can do. And I can steer them towards the movies I like and that they might like. It's a good job to have. And yes, it doesn't pay a lot of money. It pays less than you think it does being on YouTube. but it's honest work and it's decent work. Deb wants me to review Melania. Dealey says, Jules found a very small man in a dollhouse. No, she hasn't. She's not that vicious. She's the least vicious cat I know. But, yeah. And Luna, yeah, Luna would have a go at Scott Kerry if he was that small. But Dogstad says, Melania, why? Because Amazon is giving the administration a bribe so that they can keep functioning and the wider Amazon community is not going to get hit by tariffs as much. It's purely about the bucks. Follow the money, like Hal Holbrook once said. That's why it's a propaganda piece, but I might watch it and review it, and just to be aware of the zeitgeist. And the apparently it's getting tanked enormously. People hate it with a passion, and hate watching something can sometimes be entertaining and kind of. It's like I watched 2 minutes of Sky News here in Australia, which is like right wing as hell, is owned by Murdoch, and I'll do like a 2-minute hate on conservative news channels. It's probably going to be that kind of thing. Dick says, your support and advice to me in the first few months and the first bunch of videos helped me stick with it. Basically, yeah, Dick, being encouraging is great. And yeah, we're all on a learning curve with this stuff. I did not learn how to edit videos. I did not learn how to tell a story on video myself, except by doing. And that's the thing I'd encourage anybody who's got a channel is keep doing it. You'll learn. And every video you'll learn a bit more. You'll learn something new. You'll learn something elaborate about what you're already doing. And that's kind of cool. Apart from anything else, it's good for your neuroplasticity. But continual learning of things is what I've always done. I'm self-educated. I left school at 15 and kept learning things after that. And I think YouTube's part of that process for me. Doug says, my partner just walked in and said, Terry's lost weight. I probably haven't. It's just a good camera angle. P.S. Loved your recent Terry travels in Melbourne CBD. That was a good one because I got to visit, hang out with the nieces and my grandnephew, Theo, who's a lovely little baby. I haven't held a baby in years. And Lizzie, my niece, says, here, hold Theo while I have breakfast. And so I'm holding Theo and talking to him and talking nonsense. Had a great morning when I recorded that video. People are defacing Melania movie posters in city bus stops as for sale. Good. I like a bit of civil disobedience. Dogstad says, technical question. What's my thoughts on the pervasive use of AI narrators on content? Doesn't sound natural. It may get to the stage where it does, but right now my ear is tuned to talking about to AI narrators. And the other thing about AI narrators I don't like is everybody who is human has a slight regional accent. I've got a regional accent. I know when Dick does his videos, he does. Doug does as well. Everybody has nuances of speech that are specific to who they are and where they live. And I kind of like that. I watch Scottish travel channels with people who've got fairly thick Scottish accents, some less so. English travel channels, less so American, but a few of them. And I like the regionality of the voices I hear on YouTube videos. And I like the fact that it is complex and culturally diverse. And you don't get that from AI narrations. It's generic as fuck. And it doesn't sound human to my ear. Graham says, mental health issues are close to my heart. Unfortunately, most of us have to deal with difficult situations at some point. Absolutely. And I've been watching a bunch of old movies over the last maybe year where the cultural viewpoint of older movies when it comes to mental illness are blaming the person who has a mental illness. There's a lot of that shit going on. Which one was it? I was watching one this year. I'm just going to look at my list. Which one was it that had a really pejorative thing about mental illness? Might have been last year, but let me just see if I can find it on a list. No, I can't remember which one it was, but it was like, you've got a mental illness, it's your fault. That narrative's changed, of course, but it really stands out to me now in older movies. And that, of course, is the filmmaker's fear of their own mental conditions. But it doesn't land well for me that happens. And if I'm reviewing those movies, it's one of the things I'm going to point out, that our attitudes have changed towards that. Of course, not everybody's attitudes have changed towards that. I mean, in America, there's a denial of mental illness at a top level, which is kind of freaky. And of course, that then leads into it's denied because it's seen as a character failing. Dealey says, you can tell when you're hearing an AI narration, it's a flat intonation. Yeah, it doesn't have nuance. I'm deadpan at the best of times. But even when I am, there is that fluctuation and that variation in my voice, which you're not going to find in AI at this stage, at least. Friday says, there's a fantastic channel with a Scottish guy with dreads who talks about history. There's a fantastically moving episode where he has a special tartan created for you. Yeah. That cultural nuance and cultural differences are fascinating to me. And I like it. I like the diversity of it. I mean, there's a guy called Tano Onu, I think it is, who is a Nigerian guy who travels around the world and looks at the world from an African viewpoint. And his viewpoint on things is very different. He talked about Diti December in Lagos, which is the party month for people in Lagos, and talked about how culturally rich it was and how the Nigerian diaspora come back to Lagos to celebrate Diti December. All that kind of stuff. Being exposed to other cultures and other accents and things like that is not something you're going to get from AI. You're only going to get it from people. And people are the best company. Boomer Doug says, I like the critical drinker's accent, and weirdly another channel has an AI narrator that has cloned his voice to scary perfection. Critical Drinker is so misogynistic, I really can't watch his videos now. His attitude to a lot of things is kind of abhorrent to me, so I don't watch his videos. Ralph says, yeah, there's an epidemic of cognitive dissonance here in the USA, absolutely, and hypocrisy. Absolutely. I think certain political climates lend themselves to that. But yeah, I love the cultural diversity of YouTube. And I would hate to just have my subscriptions all from my own culture. To be honest with you, I don't particularly have a culture. Being self-educated, I kind of made up my own culture to a great extent. And that makes me a bit weird to a lot of Australians. I'm kind of okay with that. I'm comfortable with the internalized culture that I've created over a very long time now. Doug says, I agree, it's a tough watch. Yeah, Critical Drink is a tough watch. Dick says, Dick Power says, both myself and Carol have had or do have to a certain degree anxiety and depression issues. You got my support, Dick. If you want to talk, talk. Life does throw hard shit at us, absolutely. But one of the things we've got to learn too is don't internalize the blaming for depression or anxiety or any kind of mental condition. You don't heal from that. And I talk to Sal about this a lot. If you've got a mental condition, it's not your fault. it's something to be dealt with, and yes, you've got to deal with it, absolutely. But playing the blame game doesn't do one bit of good. It doesn't put you on that path you need to be on to manage things. And that's something I've learned from a very long time. I've got complex PTSD. There's shit that triggers me. Being too cold will trigger me for my complex PTSD because I was homeless in the winter once. I'm fine with that. I manage it. I'm getting better every day at managing it. But never blame yourself. That'd be the worst thing to do. Graham J says, people are the best company, amen. Yep, absolutely. And they are. Apart from cats. Cats are pretty good company too. You can talk to them, but you don't get a lot of feedback in any meaningful way. A cat will never say to you, you're talking shit, or you probably need to look at that in a different way. But they're comforting and mad and crazy and random and anarchic. And in summertime, Luna will rush into the house and drop a skink at my feet. Little tiny lizard about that big. And I've got to chase the fucking lizard around and throw it outside so I can get on with its life. No person's ever done that to me. Nobody has ever walked up to me, a human being, and dropped a small lizard at my feet. Friday says, sometimes our brains don't produce the right chemicals. Store-bought is fine. I know I couldn't cope without my anxiety meds. There's no shame. Absolutely, Friday. I mean, I don't have any meds for my mental health, but I've got a lot for my physical health. Look, I'm going to rattle my box. I've got meds I have to take for physical health, but my mental health I deal with in other ways. YouTube being one of them. Deb says, after years of being told everything was my fault by my POS ex, one of the first things my therapist said was my PTSD wasn't my fault. It was a light bulb moment. Yeah, absolutely. It was like I used to manage things really well. I'd get into a crisis thing, whether it's a physical crisis or not, and I'd function incredibly well in the moment of the crisis and deal with what I need to deal with and help who I need to help. And then afterwards, I'd have a collapse and get really shaky and stuff and really kind of break down a bit after the fact. And then one of my psychs said, why do you need to do that afterwards? You've gone through the crisis. You don't necessarily need to have a wobble afterwards. And since then, I haven't. It was just like I was conditioned to think there's got to be a really stressy thing I've got to do. And that's not always the case. Dick says, years ago, had cognitive behavior therapy, which helped me loads with learning to turn off the part of me that kept overthinking everything. Still have the odd days off, but I can recognize it when I'm, absolutely. Part of it is managing. I mean, particularly with Sal, and I'm not talking out of school here, with Sal's kind of depressive issues, she's getting really good at the resilience thing, understanding it, bouncing back. Yeah, in the moment, it's hard, but she is really good and has learned how to manage that. We've got an interesting track here. Yeah, it's not directly about movies, but it's about the community. And I'm there for that. I like that. Dick says, going down that way and can stop myself from overthinking things. Yeah, absolutely. You learn how to deal with stuff. And it's good that you do. And Forsyth says, what movie have you seen most times? Mine is Carnival of Souls. Best ghost movie ever made. Herc Harvey did that one fantastic film with Carnival of Souls. Absolutely. What movie have I watched most? There's a lot of them. I don't know over a long time. I mean, I've watched The Core a lot of times because I like it as a science fiction movie. I watched The Bad and the Beautiful, Vincente Minnelli's movie, and 2 Weeks in Another Town. I've watched a lot. They're probably the ones I've watched most, though I don't tend to obsessively rewatch movies. But the comfort films and Young Girls of Rochefort, the Jacques Demy musical, I watched a lot. And also Umbrellas of Cherbourg, though that always makes me cry, so I don't watch it so much. Um, Graham says, for me, it's the simple things that matter. Yeah, there's stuff I really like doing. Like the first coffee of the morning when I grind the beans and put the porterfilter on the head and make that first espresso of the morning. I like the ritual of that. I don't think it's an obsessive thing, but it's just like setting up the day. And my coffee machine varies a little bit. It depends on how I tamp it. Depends on how much ground beans I put into the porterfilter. But there are times, probably about twice a week, where I make a perfect espresso. It's like no notes. It's perfect. The crema's great. The beans are on point, and I really love making a perfect espresso first thing in the morning. It's just one of those really cool things. Franny says, Big Trouble in Little China used to be my go-to rewatch. Yeah, why not? The old Pork Chop Express. Shaking the Pillars of Heaven. That new Monarch series, second series, is coming out with Kurt Russell in it as well. Deb says, Lord of the Rings is my go-to. That's because Nibelung is a bit like Middle Earth. Yeah, my sister-in-law and niece and her partner were down your way earlier in the month, Deb, because they were taking a vacation because my niece Steph died and they needed a break. So they went all around Tassie. They loved the scallop pies. They went to Richmond. They went to all the places I recommended. They went up to the top of the mountain, had a great time down your part of the world. And Deb says, yeah, it is Middle Earth. Yeah, absolutely. Doug says, my mum suffered from mental health issues and didn't get help. My dad was just in denial. At the age of 15, I sought help for her, but she was misdiagnosed and received shock treatments. That's horrible, Doug. Yeah, shock treatments are only very, very rarely effective. D. Lee says, the movies I watch are Koyaanisqatsi or 2001. The two I've seen a lot. Cool. Visual films, that's what it is. Dick says, when Batman came out in 1989, I lost count of how many times I went to see that. And then when my dad brought home a VHS of it, we must have watched it a couple of times a week for months. Cool. I saw that when I was living in Canberra. So I must have been living in Canberra in 1989. Captain Laser agrees with For Sale and watch Carnival of Souls at least once a year. Ralph says, I can't get enough of Alien, but I don't watch more than once a year, so I don't ruin it for myself. You can always go to the original version, Mario Bava's Planet of the Vampires. Graham J says, just starting to watch For All Mankind. I'm loving it. I've watched the first season, but I've got the other 3 seasons that go out so far on a hard drive. I really should dip into that more because, yeah, I'm a space geek as well. It's kind of like the West Wing for space geeks. It's idealistic and it's the road not traveled. But yeah, For All Mankind, nice production value as well. That really works. And Deb says, a hug for Doug. Yeah, absolutely. Having a parent with mental illness is never easy. And I'm not saying that for a friend. But Friday says the basis of shock treatment was that the doctor had never seen a schizophrenic with epilepsy, not a rigorous basis. Yeah, it's like lobotomies and shock treatment. So, like, let's do something radical to the brain and see if we can kick it, turn it off and turn it back on again. It's just such a simplistic approach to things. For Sale says a DVD of Carnival of Souls, including 45 minutes of outtakes. It's good that it's available. I'm not sure I need 45 minutes of outtakes. I think the movie is such a cool package all of its own. I'm not sure I need bells and whistles. But it's good that it does that. Doug says, my go-to movies are either spy movies or 1930s and 1940s film noir. I tend to cover the waterfront. I watch a lot of things. I watch Die Hard every year. I didn't watch it last year for some reason. but I always do it as a Christmas movie. I was going to watch Kiss Kiss Bang Bang as a Christmas movie late last year, but I couldn't find my copy of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And I found it yesterday while I was doing the last touches on the back room. I found my copy of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and put it on the shelf. Captain Lazy says Criterion of Carnival of Souls is worth getting. I know I've got a copy of it, but I'm not sure which one. But I think it's a pretty good DVD release I've got. Ralph says, have the same DVD of Planet of the Vampires as me. I also used to watch Aliens and them to help too. Cool. I've got the Blu-ray now of Planet of the Vampires, and I kind of like that. I think it's a UK Blu-ray I've got. Deb says, I was only thinking a few days ago rewatching Carnival of Souls. Yeah, I think it does so well. And Herc Harvey came out of that. He was an industrial filmmaker. He made like movies about industry. And so Carnival of Souls, in some parts, has a nice documentary feel about it. And has the look of a documentary, which makes the horror work even better. I think that background that Herc Harvey had in industrial filmmaking is the secret source of Carnival of Souls. Doug says, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is a great, fantastic double bill with Nice Guys. It is. Both Shane Black movies, both very cool. I didn't get the updated version of the Nice Guys. I got the original Blu-ray release. The updated one's got a whole bunch of stuff by people I know, like Nadine Whitney. But I'm okay with having the version I've got. Graham says, saw Die Hard on the big screen, Christmas just gone. A treat for sure. Yeah, I saw it down at the Reading Cinemas at Miller's Junction. And I saw it on the big screen for the first time. If you go back on my channel and search Die Hard on the channel, you'll find the story about how I won $500 watching Die Hard in 1989. For Sale says, I met Candice Hillgloss, the star of Carnival of Souls, at a movie convention in Manhattan. Cool. She was a presence in that movie. I'm not sure she was the most complex of actresses, but in that one role, she really nailed what was necessary on. And she had that perfect early 1960s look about her. So, last minute questions, because we've got 12 minutes left. It's gone fast. Friday says, Carnival of Souls used to be a gothic fetish nightclub. We also still have Torture Garden. Have any other horror movies been used for nightclubs? We had a Hellfire Club here, and that was a horror movie as well. I actually had a friend who was a writer, and she was researching bondage clubs. And she said, I'm a little scared to go by myself. Do you want to come to a bondage club? And that's not my kink. And I went, yeah. And we went to a place called the Hellfire Club in Melbourne, which is in an old building in, I think, Burke Street, down near Southern Cross Station. Interesting experience. A little bit of nudity there, so it was kind of eye candy for me. But it wasn't my kink, but there's definitely a vibe about any place like a bondage club where there's a lot of aroused people around you and the pheromones are flying. Interesting experience, but again, not my kink. Doug says, I love all the Die Hard movies except the last one. I hope Bruce Willis is doing okay. Yeah, well, the aphasia and the dementia, his family are looking after him, and he's still functioning as well as can be expected in that stuff, but it's always a downward slope with that shit. I know that from my mother. And it's never easy for the family. You've got to put aside your own ego. Like with my mother's dementia, when she stopped knowing who I was, but she just knew I was a kind person coming to see her, I had to put my own ego aside and go, okay, if she doesn't know, it's not her fault. And I went up to Sydney a lot to see her before she died. And never an easy thing. So last minute questions on a more cheerful note. Let's end on the upbeat. We've got 10 minutes left. Throw them at me. Come at me, bro. Debbie says I went through similar with my mum. Yep. Next new release I'm going to see, says Dog's Dad. I've got some stuff on its way from Umbrella. Some really interesting cult movies, including a new Full Moon box set, I think, which has trances in it. I've already got trances on 4K, but there's a whole bunch of those Full Moon entertainment movies that are coming out, so I'm looking forward to those. Deb says, after this week, I'm heading to see Secret Agent and Blue Moon. From what I know of you, Deb, you're going to enjoy both of them. New in cinema, I might see Bone Temple. I might go and see that over the next few days. Or I'm kind of want a vulgar pleasure and see Anaconda, because that one will be a bit of fun. Friday, £2. Let's hear the fart gun. Thank you, Friday. First super chat. This one's for you. The fart gun's got a big workout with Billy in the house because he keeps grabbing it and farting everywhere. D-Lee says, have you seen any films or books that made you want to read the books? I've got a whole bunch of movie adaptations up there on the shelf. So, yeah, there's a lot of them. Did the murderer get his human right of Vegemite? Haven't seen any follow-up on that news story from a couple of months ago. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Ralph, but people should always have Vegemite. Do I think cold storage might be worth seeing? Let's see, what's cold storage? Do 2026 movie. Let's have a look here. Who's in it? Joe Keery, Vanessa Redgrave's in it. Yeah, horror comedy. David Cope is writing it. Yeah, I reckon it's worth seeing because Vanessa Redgrave and David Cope's an interesting writer. So yeah. Another good HBO series from way back was Rome. Did I see it? Saw a little bit of it. Didn't particularly grab me. Have I seen the He-Man trailer? Yes, I have. That looks kind of fun. I got the Masters of the Universe movie, the old one, with Dolph Lundgren. Umbrella sent me a copy of that, which is kind of cool. But yeah, it might be fun. It looks like it's got all the toys in it. I was a little too old to enjoy He-Man as toys, but I appreciate the aesthetic, and I did watch the cartoons. So yeah, go for it. Have fun. It might be another one of those Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves fun movies. So I'm looking forward to that. 4-star says, do I have any autographs of movie stars? I've got two. Got Robert Mitchum and I got Peter Fonda. And I got Peter Fonda from Peter Fonda. Captain Laser says, Transfers 1 and 2 I've seen many times. Still haven't got to see 3, which I said isn't any good. 3 is mid. 4 is shit. Deb's just bought the novel of Sister Brothers on the strength of the movie. Graham says, tried sending a super chat. We'll try again next week. Thanks, Graham. I appreciate the thing anyway. Yeah, but 3 has Garak in it, says Friday. But yeah, I kind of like Tim Thomerson as an actor. I think he's always a lot of fun. And that's kind of cool. And I think somebody's just got up. I don't know whether they're going to turn up on the live stream, but somebody in the house has just got up, which is fine. But I'll have to make them a coffee because I make coffee for everybody in this place. For middle-aged geek girl, I make pod coffee. And little Billy had started drinking coffee, and now I'm making him espressos in the morning. So who knows? I'm the barista around here. It'd be nice if I had a barista in-house. Maybe ultimately someone like Holly Hunter would be my perfect barista. But yeah, so all of that's happening. But yeah, I really like those full moon movies, and I'm getting sent by Umbrella a whole bunch of those kind of 1980s VHS era B genre films of various kinds, horror, science fiction, the rest of it. And I really love revisiting them. I love rewatching Sorority Babes at the Slime Ball Bolorama, for instance. All that stuff is very cool for me. Debbie's making apricot jam today. Might have a coffee and ham on toast later. Oh, I'm hungry now. I had my breakfast. I had my muesli with prunes on it. But I think I might be in the mood for a bit of a brunch and a toasty or something like that. Well, I'll talk it over with the family, work out what we're doing. Because today's kind of a down day for us. Tomorrow's going to be really hot. So we're going to work out what we're doing with that. But all of it's, yeah, until Wednesday when I've got to throw Billy onto an aeroplane and the house gets back to being quiet again. Yep. So, but yeah, this has been a good live stream. This is a good live stream. Talked about a lot of random stuff. We got the elephant in the room out of the way early. We talked about movie stuff for a lot of it. We talked about mental health and communities online. We got a very diverse chat here. And I know it's not to everybody's taste that we don't only speak about movies. But I like the diversity of it. I like the fact that it goes off on tangents and it does talk about things that people are interested in. Because ultimately, live streams are about the community and about people chatting with each other and people going where they need to go in talking to people. Graham says, Incredible Shrinking Man, we'll watch. Yeah, it's worth it. It's not too long either. And I like the direction Jack Arnold does with it. It does have a lot of meat on the bone as far as cultural stuff. I actually mentioned The Incredible Shrinking Man when I was talking to Julian for his documentary and talked about how a movie like that plays differently to a modern audience. Not in a negative way, but there's a different interpretation our minds will make on a movie like The Incredible Shrinking Man than people did in the 1950s. Ralph said, turn it in late. What did I see with Billy? I saw SpongeBob SquarePants, The Search for SquarePants with Billy, because he chose it, which means he owes me 2 movies that I get to choose. Next two movies we see, I'm picking them, and they're going to be my choice. I'm going to try to find something weird, but that's what it is. Yeah, be safe, well, and happy, everyone. We'll do our best. It's not quite time yet. We've got 2 minutes left, so I'm going to waffle for 2 more minutes. D-Lee says, live stream regress. That's the live bit. Yeah, they do. It wanders and meanders, and I'm kind of cool with that. I think there are a lot of more structured live streams than the ones I do. Disconnected does very structured live streams. Ryan does very structured live streams with a guest. And I like that format for him. But I kind of like the random, just shooting the shit format that I have for this live stream. That suits my personality. And I think it suits the community that we're building here. And that works really well. But guess what? We really must knock that naughty clock that says it's time to go. It goes so fast. Our time has passed. And we must end our show. So thanks to everybody. It's been really good. It's been useful. I know a lot of people are ass deep in snow or tits deep in snow, whichever you prefer. And cold weather. It's miserable weather in a lot of the planet. Here we just got bushfires and heat. But yeah, stay positive, says Captain Laser. Good conversations can go anywhere, says Franny. Enjoyed it as always, says Graham. Take every day at a time. Yeah, absolutely. Look after yourselves. And we got your back. There's always a place on a Monday morning every second week where you can just sit and shoot the shit here. And Dilly says all the best to us. Yeah. Look after yourselves. And I've got to end it here. But thanks again. Everybody be cool and really have a good time, watch some good movies.